Property law is an ancient, venerable concept, basic to the law. In fact, it was perhaps the most important reason for law in the Middle Ages. The recording of deeds, the noting of property. Land was the basis for wealth. It was the basis for power. It was what all of the political and social structure emanated from. And so in honor of that, I am decked out in my medieval garb, and I have brought along a no trespassing sign, which I assure you I did not have to trespass to acquire. In fact, if you go back to medieval England, the most basic tort of all was to trespass, to go on someone's property without his or her permission, or to stay there after the permission had been withdrawn. Land is at the apex, in effect, of all the structures there in medieval England. Now, property includes a lot more than land, but I think it helps you to understand property interests if you can at least understand at the very basic level this tangible property interest, the very land we stand upon. Now, contracts back then were so basic in this area of property interests that what we sometimes see is they would put all sorts of symbolism into their transactions. So, for instance, a sale of land from one medieval owner to another was not undergirded by consideration. It was not really undergirded by a concept of quid pro quo. It was represented through a symbolic transaction in which one person would literally give to the other person a stick, a rock, a piece of dirt, a clump of sod, something from the land to kind of symbolize that you are now the new owner of the land. It has now been entrusted to you. And to make this even more symbolic and more significant, the documents that reflected this, the deeds, any mortgages if there were loans involved, any easements that were recorded and the like, were almost always recorded through a very formalized process of signatures, of notarization, of seals. And so people would get out their wax and they would emboss these seals, and the notion was, this is so fundamental, we have to make sure we have very good recording. So much of property law really deals with recording of interests and making sure that others are accorded notice so that no one else can supersede your interests. There's no way they can take over from you because they know that it's your land and you are asserting an interest in this. Now, this also occurs in other fields as well, far and apart from real estate. But that is the crux of it, and all law in the field of property really emanates from and takes from this historic tradition which goes back to the Middle Ages and real property estates.